Good morning and welcome to the Core Connection. I'm Mira Rubin here with you on Enlightened World Network. And today's topic is the deep well, the well of emotions that we have, and that is sometimes so terrifying that we just run the other way. And today we get to explore what treasures might be available to us when we face those very intense emotions. But before we get started, let's take a minute or two to get present. Let's take a deep breath in through your nose and hold it. And imagine clean, crisp oxygen flooding into your lungs, flowing into your bloodstream, nourishing your cells, your organs, your body, your being. And as you exhale, exhale any tension, stress, negativity, or fatigue. And now let's take another deep breath in through your nose and hold it. And imagine brilliant bright light lighting you up from the inside out, electrifying, illuminating, energizing all your cells, all your electrons and your molecules, and lighting you up from the inside out. And as you exhale, exhale any remaining stress, tension, negativity, fatigue. And now let's just gently press our palms together and very softly, softly, softly rub your fingers against your palms to feel how delicious that sensation is, and allow yourselves to become present right here, right now. Welcome, welcome, welcome. So it is Friday. Another week's flown by. It just keeps happening. I guess that's a good thing, right? Good morning, Rosalind. So good to have you here with us on this Friday. We're talking about the well of deep emotions that sometimes make us want to run the other way, and and feel like we're going to avoid those experiences, that intensity of that emotion at all costs. And oh my, this has become a regular thing, the morning yawn. Sorry about that. So I know that we have the capacity to experience profound and intense emotion. And I've encountered, for myself as well as for others, moments where the fear of getting so deeply into an emotion, to become so overwhelmed by it, is that the fear is so intense of becoming overwhelmed by the deep emotion that we avoid it and bury it and deny it. And I'm wanting to look at that dynamic, but also to see what it takes to really address those emotions. The thing is, and I know it's frightening sometimes to feel like if we go into that emotion, it'll overtake us and we'll never find our way out. I have encountered that, as I said, with myself as well as with clients, being afraid to really experience the feelings because they are so profound sometimes. And yet my awareness, and I just am going to bring it back here as a reminder, is that when we do presence ourselves to the emotion without judgment, it moves. It has to move. There's only so long that we can be present to that emotion before the energy of it dissipates. And it may come back at another time, but it will come back in a bit of a different flavor, or a different intensity, a different angle on that emotion. Good morning, Lisa. So good to have you here with us today. We're talking about deep emotions, or the deep well, as I'm calling it today, and the value of really exploring, or allowing ourselves to experience the depth of our emotion, and thereby to allow it to release and dissipate. So the thing that, good morning, Bernadette. So good to have you here with us this morning. We're talking about the deep well of emotion that we have, and for anyone who has experienced depression, and I have for years and years and years of my life, um, I certainly understand how threatening it might feel to be falling, and here's the language, interesting language, falling back into that kind of feeling. And so there can be a tendency to just deny it, or to push it away, rather than to find a way to allow ourselves the experience of it in order to allow it to move. You know, what we resist truly does persist. By resisting something, specifically and particularly emotions, we tend to embed them more deeply. And ultimately, when these profound emotions are ignored and pushed down long enough, they start manifesting in physical form. And first as discomfort, and ultimately, potentially, if we continue to ignore them, as dis-ease. And I think what we get to look at is the wisdom of our body and being. And when we recognize ourselves as energetic systems, then that gives us perhaps a bit of an insight into how these uh, how these energetic patterns work. So Bernadette is saying hello to Miss Maggie. So here she is. She's just been crawling all over me. So here she is to say hello. There she is. Say hi, Maggie. You've got all your fans. Yes, she's very excited. she she loves being the spotlight for sure. Right, Maggie? Right? Yeah. You've got all your fans. Anyway, so with the intensity, particularly of grief, as an emotion, or depression, sadness, the intensity of that feeling can be so powerful that it feels like it will swallow us, and that we'll never be able to come back up for air. And I'm imagining that you all have had that experience from one time or another. Bernadette says, I think depression is totally different for how each of us perceive each situation. You know, I agree with you, Bernadette. And the thing, the thing about depression is that it's well, emotions are physiological too, right? There's a whole chemistry set that occurs with different emotions, and depression is a physical thing as well, where our physiology becomes depressed. We become exhausted, we become um, potentially more susceptible to illness, for example. because our immune system gets depressed as well. And the thing that has come into my awareness over the past however many years is that we say I'm depressed. And the thing about that is that we're speaking of it as if it's a steady state. And the truth of it is, it's not a steady state. I have moments of depression is more accurate, or I have moments when I'm sad. So Lisa says, I was paralyzed with depression for over a decade when my mom died. Then all these medical issues started making it even harder to deal with. Lisa, I'm so sorry for your loss. And I know how profoundly grief can impact us. It can be, as you said, paralyzing. And the thing is that you were depressed so deeply for so long, and then all these medical issues arose. I don't think it's an accident. And so with the grief and depression, I think it helps to have somebody be there to help guide through that, because it can, I think one of the things that we tend to do is generalize. So it's a generalization to say I'm depressed, for example. In fact, we are always going through ebbs and flows. And I have a dear friend who just lost her mother, Lisa, and she said it's so different from what it was like when she lost her dad, that it just feels like there's this empty hole in her life that she didn't even know had been filled, that there was just this depth of despair, not being able to get out of bed, not being able to do and be in her normal life, like no will for any of it. So, I deeply understand this, having, as I said, been through years of depression myself as well. The thing is, with this emotion, particularly like with grief, with the loss of a loved one, it comes in ebbs and flows. Lisa says, they say there's, welcome, Elaine. So good to have you joining us. And Lisa says, they say there's a biological change in your chemistry when you lose a mother. That's a very interesting concept, actually. Just a chemical change when a mother is lost. That's very interesting. What I do know is that there are all kinds of chemical changes with depression and with any emotion, with excitement, with elation, with joy, with love. There are all kinds of different chemical sets that happen in our bodies, and it can become a downward spiral. I remember being so depressed and just so committed to making a shift. I remember, being in the shower and just crying and trying to sing just to change my state, even in the slightest increment. And so the thing about depression particularly, but any emotion, is that it's not constant. And the tendency to generalize kind of embeds that state, or that perception of that state, or perpetuates that state even more so. So if I say I'm depressed, first of all, I'm taking it on as an identity, like it's who I am. in my beingness rather than something that I'm experiencing. And that's an important distinction. But when I recognize, or when we recognize that it's an experience that comes in ebbs and flows, then, it can be crazy making, because one moment you're okay and the next moment you're just bleeding out on the floor, emotionally, energetically. The thing is that if we can allow those crazy fluctuations, or those fluctuations of extreme, if we can be present to it and allow for ourselves to be in this erratic pattern, this erratic energy pattern, then we can allow ourselves to process it more readily, where rather than judging ourselves, because from the outside and from the inside, it kind of feels crazy to be going through such intense fluctuations, to be just fine, everything's going along fine, and you're even maybe able to laugh and have fun, and then the next moment, bam, you're just completely overcome by grief. And I think that as we can recognize that this is a normal process, then perhaps we can allow ourselves access to the healing, where it's just allowing this energy to move through. And there are many, many stories also that we tell ourselves in the process of grieving, and in the process of loss, or integrating loss, like the world is over. Or we generalize to be saying, not only is my world destroyed, but look at the world in general. And this is a pattern I see so often in others, and that I've seen in myself as well, is that when there's this depth of intense, overwhelming emotion, grief, depression, then it again tends to get generalized out into perception of the world. And, what am I doing here? And what are we doing here on the planet? And what is going on with, here's some more and more and more and more to be depressed or disempowered by. So we tend to project that emotion outward also, because our mind wants to be finding some way to understand things that are incomprehensible, like the loss that we experience of another that is dearly loved. It's an incomprehensible feeling. It's an incomprehensible loss, like a part of your soul's been ripped out. And that deep pain and emptiness, because it is challenging our identity in a very fundamental way. It's like, I know myself with this person in the world, or this beloved pet, or this beloved, or this circumstance, or what happens is it challenges our very sense of being, and that then can readily propagate outward. So Bernadette says, can I ask what it is that makes one go from laughter to tears? That's such a good question, Bernadette. Is it what we are continuously telling ourselves in our mind? I don't mean any disrespect for anyone to experience this. I'm learning. I think we can only hold a certain level of intensity for so long, right? And the emotion, if the emotion is energy, the energy comes and goes. There's a movement. Okay, so in one moment, we're overcome with the grief. And as we're able to release that grief in that moment, as we allow that energy to move, it frees us up to be able to be in another state. And that said, um, there's a sign from, I mean, a line from, I think it was a Joni Mitchell song, laughing and crying, it's the same release. And so, we tend to judge our emotions. We can say that here something tragic has happened in our lives, and therefore I should be feeling a certain way. So we don't allow ourselves the freedom of the spectrum of experience. And Lisa says, for me, it wasn't just the loss. I was my mom's caregiver. And and when she died, I felt like I failed her. Lisa, I am so sorry for that deep trauma on top of the grief, the trauma of that feeling of failure. The thing is that you were there and you were present for her, and that in and of itself is a success. I mean, it sounds to me like you thought you could save her, and the thing is, we all die. And the fact that you were there so generously for her, I'm sure it registered very deeply for her. And perhaps there may be a way that you can come to receive that as a gift that you were able to share, and that she shared with you the opportunity for you to be her caregiver. But you couldn't save her. You didn't fail her. And I hope for you that you can find a place in your heart to be compassionate toward yourself in the generous love and care that you gave her. So Rosalind says, to feel joy also means you can feel pain. Ignoring the pain blocks joy from coming in. So true, Rosalind. Really beautiful insight. To sit with pain with no judgment. That's the key. Absolutely. No judgment is the path to releasing the trauma caused by the pain. 100%, Rosalind. Not necessarily reliving it, but acknowledging what is there. Exactly. So one thing, there are three aspects to this. There's the pain, the actual experience of it. There's the story that we attach to it. And there's the judgment that we attach to it. When we can relieve ourselves of the story and the attachment, we then can allow the energy of that emotion to process through. Elaine says, it's a natural experience in life, one that we came to experience. It's a rebirthing for all connected to the experience, to shift into the next stage of what's to come. So, Elaine, I'm presuming you're talking here about death and loss. The loss of a mother is like the permanent cutting of the umbilical cord, almost feeling disconnected from source. Exactly. Because our parents become like our God, this experience forces us to go within and reconnect to the source of life itself, if we choose to. Not easy, but part of the journey. Blessings and love to all that are experiencing a rebirthing at this time. Elaine, that was so magnificently said. Truly, truly beautiful. And it is like our own death and rebirth. And Lisa says she was my best friend. I'm so sorry for your loss, Lisa. And I hope you give yourself the grace of having the gift to both of you of having been there for her. Elaine says, when we do move beyond the grief, we can then celebrate the life that was lived. It's a back and forth experience until the rebirthing is complete. Much love. it really truly is a back and forth experience. It's like crazy whipsaw of emotion that if you were to stand back, it's like, oh my God, right? This moment I'm in the depths of of despair. This other moment I'm fine. What in the world is going on? Because we think it should be some kind of linear process, and it isn't in any way, shape, or form. Lisa says, I actually told her that. I thanked her for the opportunity to give back to her. I've come full circle now. My spiritual awakening has truly helped me put so much into perspective. My mom comes to me and talks to me. She told me, I'm not gone. I'm just in a different space. Lisa, I'm so glad to hear that for you. It sounds like it was a coming of age process in a way, like a coming into your own, just as Elaine was saying, that when we experience these losses that with the people and beings that are very much a part of our identity, it calls us to reconnect in a whole new way. And I'm so glad to hear that your mom's in communication with you, Lisa. That's beautiful, and that you're able to receive that from her and with her. That's wonderful. I'm thrilled that you have that rich connection. So I don't understand what you're saying here, Elaine. What it looks like is uh, Lisa power experience for love. I'm not sure what that means, but um, there's so much love for all of you who are who have we all have transited powerful emotion, and to allow ourselves to move through that process with love, compassion, and patience, I think is an important and profound gift that we can give ourselves and others who are going through the similar kinds of processes. So that's it for this morning, and so much love and appreciation to you and for you. And I'm Mira Rubin. This is the Core Connection. And I go live here each weekday morning at 9 a.m. Eastern on the Enlightened World Network Facebook page. Please check out the other awesome programming on all the other Enlightened World Network channels, EWN One with the Earth, Enlightened World Living. There you go, Elaine. A powerful experience, Lisa. Much love. And Lisa, thank you so much for sharing. It. I know that we can all relate, and you opened your heart so that we could open ours. So until next time, so much love. Wishing you a wonderful weekend, and compassion and love for yourself. Be willing to dive deep into the well without judgment and allowance to let it move through the emotions, allow them to move through.